we will continue our relentless diplomatic efforts to prevent renewed aggression and to promote dialogue and peace. At the same time, we continue to bolster Ukraine's ability to defend itself and make clear the costs that the United States and Europe will impose on Moscow if it rejects the diplomatic path that we've laid out and proceeds with an unwarranted, unprovoked, unacceptable invasion or destabilization of Ukraine.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, after meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky today in Kyiv, he reiterated American support for Ukraine's sovereignty, and he warned Putin of severe economic consequences should he choose to attack Ukraine. Remember, Russia has about 100,000 troops along its border with Ukraine at several different spots, strategic ones. Now the Kremlin has moved troops to Belarus for joint military drills. Olga Tokariuk is a freelance correspondent with EFE News Agency. She's also a non-resident fellow at the Center for European Policy Analysis. Ms. Tokariuk is in Kyiv. Ms. Tokariuk, there does still seem to be hope that the diplomatic efforts will pay off, that they'll work. But at the same time, there's still growing concern that Russia is actually going to attack. What are the Ukrainians you've been speaking to telling you? How are they feeling?
Yeah, well, the anxiety in Ukraine has been mounting in the recent days and weeks. And if still about a month ago, like majority of people I spoke to, they dismissed that there could be another Russian invasion of Ukraine. Now the mood has changed and people are more worried and they think that the threat is more real. Although the Ukrainian authorities, they try to calm people down, and President Zelensky issued a video statement today in which he basically addressed the Ukrainians and told them, well, that they shouldn't panic, that they should stay calm and prepare for resistance. And he tried to downplay also the possibility of a new Russian invasion by saying that the war has been going on in Ukraine since 2014 and there is nothing particularly new happening. But, well, there are so many signals coming about a Russian buildup that doesn't stop, about Russian troops now appearing in Belarus. And the latest reports indicate that there are some troops on the Belarusian territory just 40 kilometers from a Ukrainian border and about 200 kilometers from Ukraine's capital, Kyiv. So, of course, that makes people worried and it makes them anxious and it makes them reflect on how they should react to this. My friends and people I speak to on a daily basis, they've been making preparations such as they prepared go bags, like a bag with all the necessary documents and the things that they would need first, like some clothes and water and some cash, just to be ready in case there is an alert or there is an aerial bombardment, because that is not excluded too. So people are trying to be ready to prepare somehow, but they are at the same time worried because there is so much uncertainty about whether there will be a new attack on Ukraine and about how it would look like.
It's a terrible reality to be in, to have to be prepared for the potential for something like that. In terms of trying to deter Russia, NATO countries do seem to agree that, in their view, Russia should face serious economic consequences if it does go ahead, if it does invade Ukraine. What's the sense there about that approach, that threat? Do you think it could actually deter Russia? Do people there think it would work?
Yeah, well, of course, Ukraine is really thankful to its Western allies and partners that they support Ukraine, and some of them have been providing also defensive equipment and defensive weapons to Ukraine in recent days. For example, this week, the UK sent more than 1,000 units of light anti-tank weapons in order for Ukrainians to be able to boost their defense capabilities. There has been also military assistance coming from the United States. At the same time, other countries such as Germany have ruled out the possibility of providing military assistance to Ukraine. So on the one hand, this sends in a way like a double signal to Ukrainians that on the one hand, there are countries that are able and they are willing to assist Ukraine also like to boost its defense capabilities. And there are other ones that are more reluctant to do that. Also with Germany, there are questions about the Nord Stream 2, the pipeline that would bypass Ukraine. And while the US insists that it should be halted in case there is a new invasion of Ukraine, Germany was reluctant to promise. But recently, the Chancellor Olaf Scholz said they would consider halting it. However, for many Ukrainians, this statement seemed as not enough. Like just considering it is not enough. What Ukraine would like to see, and I'm talking now about the Ukrainian government, about the position of the Ukrainian officials, they said that some sanctions should be applied in a preventive manner, that Nord Stream 2 should be stopped before a new Russian invasion begins. In this way, the West would demonstrate to Russia that they are serious about defending Ukraine and about countering any Russian threat.
You wrote earlier this month that Ukrainians fear, quote, Western betrayal, that a deal would be struck in their absence to shut the door of EU and NATO membership and return them to a cage, as you wrote, where they are ruled from Moscow. The US and NATO, they continue to reject Russia's demand that Ukraine not become a member of NATO. But is that convincing people in Ukraine?
Well, that piece was written before the negotiations that took place last week, the negotiations between the US and Russia, NATO and Russia, and the OSCE and Russia. And actually, what we saw during these talks was like really reassuring and sent like good messages to Ukraine and also to other countries in Central and Eastern Europe and in the Baltics that are with increasing anxiety are following the situation because they feel that they might be next Russian targets. So it's very good that at those talks, the US and NATO, they reiterated that there would be no closed door policy for Ukraine, that Ukraine and Georgia have a right to have, aspirations to join NATO and the European Union as they were previously promised at the Bucharest summit in 2008. So that was a really good signal. So I think there is no feeling of betrayal now in Ukraine. But as I said, the problem is that there are divisions between Ukraine's Western partners, and while some countries have been demonstrating, a tougher position on Russia, some other ones were not, and especially the recent signals that are coming also from France are quite worrying because French President Macron said that he would like to have some format of negotiations with Russia that would not include the United States, that the EU should have a security deal with Russia in a separate format. So, what is worrying Ukrainians? There is a certain, let's say, level of disagreement among the Western partners, and that might play into Russia's hands because Russia always tries to exploit divisions and always tries to sow divisions and to undermine the unity of the free and democratic world.
Before we let you go, I wanted to get a sense of what people there are feeling about what Canada has contributed so far and what the government here is saying. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau saying earlier today, reiterating that Ukraine and Ukrainians have Canada's steadfast support, that they're there as friends and allies, the Operation Unifier, offering support and training troops. How do people there feel about Canada's offer of help so far?
Well, Canada has been one of the most historical, let's say, and strongest Ukraine's partners. And there is a sizable Ukrainian diaspora in Canada, and there have been strong ties between the two countries. And Ukrainians greatly appreciate the support that Canada provides. And actually, in the recent days, there was a visit of a Canadian foreign minister to Ukraine, and she voiced some statements and words of support that Canada is standing with Ukraine and is ready to support Ukraine in case it faces another Russian attack. What Ukrainians and the Ukrainian government would like to see from Canada is maybe joining those countries that are providing military assistance to Ukraine, because I know that there was a debate in Canada about that, but the decision was taken to abstain from it for the time being. But hopefully, the talks about that will be back in Canada, because this military equipment, it is not needed for Ukraine to attack anyone. Ukrainians needed to be able to defend their country. They know there will be no foreign boots on the ground in Ukraine. They know they will have to fight fight on their own. But what they would need some, weapons to protect themselves and to defend themselves with, because unfortunately, in some areas, Ukrainian military really lacks equipment. And first of all, Ukrainian weaknesses are air defense and naval defense. So if Canada could help with that, that would be really helpful.
Olga Tokariuk in Kiev for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.